In the previous exercises, we looked at an infinite and a finite interval. Now, in this lesson, we're going to be looking at how we represent an infinite interval rather by in three different ways. We can be given a verbal description as we have here in this column, or we can be asked to write it in interval notation, or we could ask it to graph it on a number line. Okay, so let's just look quickly at what is required of us to do in this situation. Now, the first case, this is number one, we're asked to represent real numbers greater than 5. Now here we're going to look at how we represent that in interval notation. Okay, now they're speaking about real numbers greater than 5. So if it's greater than 5, when writing it in interval notation, I must use a special kind of bracket, which is the parenthesis. Okay, once it says greater than, I must use my parenthesis, meaning this curve bracket, this one that looks like a C. Now 5 is my boundary, so 5 should be here, comma, and if it's greater than 5, it means then that it is increasing all the values that are above 5. So it simply means then I'm going up to positive infinity. And since you cannot touch infinity, no one will ever reach infinity, so I close by using another curly brackets. Okay, so that is how we would this is how we would represent real numbers that are greater than 5 on a number line. 5 is our boundary, but since it's greater than 5, we use a parenthesis, okay, to represent that. And since we're going up to infinity, we use another parenthesis. Now also, this same information we could ask to represent it on a number line, and this is how we would represent it on a number line. Now once it says greater than, 5 is the boundary, it's 5 we're dealing with, so I'm going to put a circle at 5, and if you notice, my circle is open. Okay, that's an open circle, and I'm going above 5, so I'm going to the right of 5. Okay, so if you notice, I draw my line with my rule, and I put on a arrowhead on the tip of my line to suggest that I'm going up to positive infinity. If you notice, I put my infinity sign, meaning that this line will never stop. It will be increasing in that direction. So that's how you represent a real number that is greater than 5 on the number line. Remember, 5 is the boundary, so you have to put it at 5. Now, and then we're increasing, so we're going to the right of 5, and we're going to infinity. Now let's look at another scenario. We're asking in the second part, we're asked to represent real numbers less than 5. Now, since I'm looking at real numbers less than 5, then it simply means then I'm going to use my parenthesis because it is less than. So I'm going to use my parenthesis again. Now, since it's less than, it means then that I would be, and if you look on the number line, it would make sense. If 5 is here, I am going to be going to my left of 5. Okay, so I'm going in the direction of negative infinity now. Okay, so I use my parenthesis because I will never reach negative infinity, comma, and 5 is my boundary. That's a boundary that they put there, so I must have my 5, and since it's less than, it simply means that I will never touch 5. Okay, so once it is less than or greater than, I must use my parenthesis to close. Again, we can represent this on a number line quickly. My boundary is 5, it is less than 5, so to show that it is less than 5, I must use an open circle again. Once it is less than or greater than, I must use my open circle, but the difference, it's less than now, so I'm going to go to my left of 5. Okay, and you use your ruler, you draw a straight line going in that direction. I'm going to put on my arrowheads, and since I'm going to negative infinity, then I'm going to put my negative infinity sign. Okay, to show that I'm going in a negative direction forever. Okay, so that's how you would represent this scenario on a number line. Let's look at scenario number 3. Okay, now here we're asked to represent real numbers greater than or equal to 5. Now, this is the term that we're looking at, greater than or equal to 5. Now, when asked to show real numbers greater than or equal to, this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to use my bars. Look at my brackets rather. Look at this kind of bracket that I'm going to be using now. It is a square bracket and it's like that. Okay, now what this is saying, anytime I'm working with inequalities and I see this word greater than or equal to and I'm asked to write it in interval notation, I must use my square brackets, okay, or what we call braces. Yeah, now it's greater than or equal to 5, so again 5 is my boundary, and if it's greater than or equal to, what this is saying, now I can touch 5. 5 is included because it is equal to 5. Greater than or equal to means that 5 is included, so this is why I use this kind of bracket to indicate that the 5 is included. Okay, now again I am going up because it's greater than, so I'm going to infinity. Okay, and I will never reach infinity. No one can reach infinity. So once I'm using my infinity sign here, I must use my parenthesis now to close. Okay, that curly, that bracket that look like a C. Okay, now I can now represent that on a number line also, and this is how we represent this on a number line. Now I'm going to use my circle again, and again I'm placing it at 5. But in this case, look what I'm going to be doing now. In this case, because it says greater than or equal to, I am going to shade this. Okay, when I shade it, it simply indicates that 5 is included. Okay, it is equal to 5. And again, I'm going to go to my right because it's greater than, put on my arrowhead, and I'm going to indicate that I'm going to positive infinity. So this is how you would represent this scenario or this example using interval notation, and this is how we would represent it on a number line. Now number 4, let's look at that quickly. Number 4. Now in number 4 we're asked to represent real numbers less than or equal to 5. Okay, so if we're asked to represent this, again, since it's less than, and this is one of the important things that I'm paying attention to, this term less than means that I'm going to my left of 5. Okay, so if I'm going to my left, then I would be moving towards negative infinity. So once I'm going to infinity, it doesn't matter whether negative or positive, I must use my parenthesis. So this indicates that I'm going to negative infinity. Okay, comma, and then 5 would be my boundary that I'm dealing with, this 5 here. Okay, however, if you notice, it states that it is less than or equal to. So once it states less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, I must use my square brackets, okay, or my braces. Good, so I use that kind of bracket. Now that can be quickly we're going to represent that on a number line, and again 5 is the boundary, so I'm going to always put your circle over the boundary, but to indicate that it is less than or equal to, I will have to shade that to show that 5 is included. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to move to my left of 5. Okay, and I put on my arrowhead to indicate that I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to put my negative infinity sign to show that I'm going forever to my left or to the negative values. Okay, so I'm taking all the values that are less than 5. Now in the 5th situation, we're asked to show all real numbers. So what they're saying, they need us to show all real numbers on our number line. So if they're asking us to show all real numbers, it simply means then I am going from negative infinity to positive infinity. So I'm going to use my parenthesis here to represent that. So open parenthesis, and this is saying that I'm going from negative infinity, comma, and I'm going to positive infinity. And again, since I'm using my infinity sign, I must use parenthesis, because parentheses are used to show that I will never touch these values. Okay, like for example, in the first case, it said it was greater than 5. You notice I use a parenthesis to show that 5 wasn't included. And also when representing on my number line, I had to use an open circle to show that 5 wasn't included, the value 5. Okay, when the number is included, like for example here, when we have greater than or equal to, we have to use a brace or a square bracket to show that the number is included. And when we're representing that on a number line, we have to shade it. Okay, so that's when you shade to show that the value is included. Since we were going to infinity, I use my parenthesis here when representing in interval notation, and I use my infinity sign. So now with that, let's conclude by representing this on a number line. So what this is basically saying, this is saying I'm going from negative, and this is pretty easy. This is saying I'm going from negative infinity and I'm going up to positive infinity. And if you notice on my number line here, I have my negative values down here going to my left, and I have some positive values here. And all I'm going to do is to draw my line. Please draw with your rulers, okay? And I'm going to put on my arrowheads on my line to indicate that I'm going in those directions. Okay, and it's that easy, guys. In the next exercise, we're going to work some questions and show you how just some exercises to reinforce these concepts. Okay, feel free to leave a note or a question if you're not sure, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Or if this video has helped you, you can always subscribe to the channel. Bye bye.